Cradle, The Rise of the Chosen, Chapter 19, Part 2. Yamur, Iolu, Kanti. Let's sit on a bench somewhere, Josh said, looking focused on his thoughts again. They walked a good 2 minutes before they came upon a green-painted wooden bench. Gianoa sat first, and then Josh paced a bit before he sat. Takuma tried not to search him with his Itoriyama for fear of attracting spiritual attention. It seemed like Josh objected to that caution by allowing his eyes to get significantly bright, but Takuma remembered that only those sensitive to the spirit would see his eyes that way for the most part. Josh sat up straighter and took a deep breath. Pilopi ipti jintol gone. We only have 7 hours left. Doli genti ealt wheel. However, we have a lot of walking to do, Josh stated. They walked through the entire remaining harbor suburbs at a steady and quick pace. Takuma worked up hunger again, but he wanted to see what else unfolded. The 3-story houses and townhouses gave way to awesome skyscrapers, some with violet glass or bright light blue tints. The architecture was detailed and angular in the most satisfying ways. The vehicles at ground level were alluring and captivated Takuma every time he gave one a moment of assessment, and then Josh stopped walking. He stood with his eyes aglow and thought or perceived for a handful of moments. They were on an avenue corner with a few other pedestrians and the sultry music of some foreign horn coming from a cafe or bar. Monje, Umar. This is the building, Josh said. Gidoe, come in me. Stay behind me. They walked into the skyscraper on the corner and entered a lobby flush with clean red carpet and ferns with outrageously huge leaves. The attendee at the front desk nodded at them, if a little suspicious, but went about his apparent paperwork. They crossed the lounge area with beige and white sharp-angled couches and went to a door in the corner by an info kiosk. It was the stairwell. Josh stood at the bottom of the stairs for a moment. Takuma wasn't looking forward to climbing steps. He was beginning to get stressed by this whole mysterious maneuvering and not having eaten as much as he needed to. However, he wouldn't object to Josh. Yamuel, Ioi, you can't talk, Josh said. Miemu, onti, eyes in the building. The beige paint on the walls was slightly pleasing, and Takuma did all he could to distract himself from his unwanted workout. Gianoa seemed to be willing to see what happened, but her body was very tired as well. They stopped on the 9th floor and entered an Asian-styled carpet-lit hallway. The walls were gradient gold and beige and white and brown, and the doors were made of glossy wood. Josh took them a third of the way down the hallway and stopped at a door that read, Huli Konoili, Mass Accounting. Josh wasted no time opening the door, and then he jogged across the small office to the desk and flipped open a few leather-bound books and then stopped for a moment and looked around at the shelves built into the walls and the chest of drawers on the south wall. He went to a blue steel file cabinet and opened a thick cardstock notebook. His eyes lit up immediately, and he nodded in recognition that left Takuma baffled. Josh pointed at the door to the hallway, and they all scurried out and into the hallway just as a man turned the corner 10 feet ahead of them, but he didn't seem to take notice of anything unusual with the trio and nodded politely. They sped down the stairs in the same stairwell they came up from, and in the lobby they slowed down and casually walked back out into the night. On the corner, Josh broke the silence immediately. Giamoli, Fino, Duali Mal. We'll get some good food. Lito, Niti, Giboli, but no talking. Boli, Ilo. Our spirits will give us away, Josh explained. They sat on the floor cushions in a draped eating area and ate hummus and pita with figs and dates. It was entirely delicious to Takuma, and he could feel his body thanking him. He was energized but a little annoyed that he couldn't share his positive feelings with Gianoa, because their spirits might attract attention. Josh seemed to really be pleased with the food too, and emotionally that they would stay here for 2 hours at the table. So Takuma put his arms around Ginoa and they took a nap beside the table. Josh awoke them and they left. And Josh somehow compensated the staff for the food and the table. They walked along the main city street and stopped on the corner across the street from the Eastern Palace of the Juniors. They waited for a signal from Josh, and Takuma saw that Josh only started walking when this nerdy, short, old man with gold-rimmed glasses made it to the sidewalk from the palace. They followed the man for a mile and a half until they entered the bank. They waded across the street until the man exited and walked further along the road up toward the western sector. Josh motioned them to follow him into the bank. The service windows were framed with gold steel that reached all the way up to the high ceilings with pleasant diffused white light. Josh went up to the window in the center and looked down and across to the teller's computer screen, and Takuma saw his eyes light up, but the teller had no clue. And so quietly, they went out into the morning star's light and walked quickly back to the black sandy beach and waited for the boat. Josh sat in the sand, Indian style, while the king and queen stood. Jineti, ha'amul ni. The bank at the bottom of the sea. Pintu, kuli, winti. It's gonna make the sky change. Winti, kwilomi. The people will take it as a heavenly sign. Riznoi, jit. That notebook in the office, Jinue, holki, hamiem. A false prophet's speech. Irol, didioil. And he will lead the people astray, Josh explained, and then lowered his eyes to the sand. And the bank? Gino asked impatiently. Josh frowned and shook his head. Tati Rimba, Weevul, Jim Jien. Crown Rimba transferred all his gold to you, Ginoa, Josh explained.